The air in Dad's office hung thick with a scent of disinfectant and something else, something deeper and primal: decay. It clung to the plush leather armchair he always sat in, a monument to his success. The success built on a foundation as dark as the mahogany walls in his office. Dad, let's conceal his name as Dudong, the undisputed king of our funeral home. I won't give you the name of the funeral home for privacy reasons, but let's just call it Dudong Funeral Homes, one of the biggest chain in the country, in the Philippines. But the fortune wasn't built on embalming, fluid, and mahogany. No, it was built in a far more sinister trade. I knew, because I saw. The first time was when I was 8, hiding under his desk during a particularly bad thunderstorm. A low rumble, not of a thunder, but something else, something that vibrated in your bones, echoed through the room. Then shadows, not the kind of casts that being given by flickering lights, but it was black, ominous figures, coalesced from the very darkness itself. They were tall, faceless entities with inky black limbs that seemed to absorb the light around them. Their voice were a mixture of multiple voices that I haven't heard before, very low ones, that they came from the very bottom of the earth. Dad spoke to them. His voice was calm and practiced, a stark contrast to the raw terror clawing at my throat. He offered them something, a list of people, a name, a date, a life extinguished. In return, the shadow pulsed, a dark energy radiating from them. And my dad, he seemed to grow stronger, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They fed in the dead, these entities. The stronger the emotion surrounding the passing, the greater the feast. The more cleaner and innocent the soul, the happier they are. And Dad, he was just the middleman, the one who was facilitating their gruesome banquet. Dodong funeral homes weren't just about death care. They were a front, a grotesque buffet line for the shadows. This knowledge festered inside me, poisoning my childhood. My friends envied our name. They were very envious of the sprawling mansion, the seemingly endless stream of money, but they didn't see the shadows lurking at the edge of our lives, the cold emptiness in Dad's eyes whenever he looked at me. The guilt became a constant companion, a weight that threatened to crash me, to end me. But fear kept me silent. What could I do? Who would believe me? My dad owned the narrative, the political clout. The city practically worshipped the ground he walked on. Exposing him would mean my own destruction. Years blurred into a montage of luxury-tainted screams. Top schools, flashy cars, all fueled by a blood-soaked wellspring. I started doing alcohol, fleeting relationships, but it offered no escape. Then came the accident. Sarah, my best friend, a burst tire on a rainy night. She shouldn't have died. But the shadows came, drawn by the suddenness of her demise. That was my breaking point. Grief and fury ignited a desperate need to stop the cycle. I devoured obscure texts, delved into forgotten rituals. I did my diligent research, everything I could think of. There had to be a way to break the pact, like sever the ties binding our family to these entities. But my research yielded a terrifying truth. The shadows couldn't just be satiated with the occasional death. They weren't fed with strong emotions. The more gruesome their hunger arose. They could steal life, feast on the living. The dynasty, our business, Dudong Funeral Homes, unknowingly held back an even greater evil. My best friend's last days were carried in our funeral home. I didn't show up. I didn't want to accept the fact that her soul has now been a feast for the shadows. That I, her friend, can't do a thing. I cried, and everyone thought I was just depressed. But deep down, it was even greater than that. I even thought of ending my life, but I too was scared to be eaten by the same shadows I feared so much. Years passed by, and the day come where I was trained to take the family business myself. One day, the doorbell rang, and my father ushered in a family, grief etched on their faces. They carried a tiny bundle, their little girl, a child, her face peaceful in death. A wave of nausea washed over me. I felt sick, deep down my stomach, but I carried on. My father offered his practiced condolences, and the shadows staring with anticipation the corner of my eye. My stomach churned. I knew they could sense the family's raw grief, a feast fit for the king. But if I stopped my father, the shadows might turn on them, on the living, on my family, on the weakened souls. A horrifying realization crashed over me. The only way to protect the innocent, to maintain a semblance of balance, might be to become the very monster I despised. My father began the ceremony, and his voice resonating in the deathly silence. With a heavy heart, I joined in, and my voice choked with a mix of grief and terrible resolve. The shadow pulsed, and their hunger sated for now, as the family left their sorrow a little more bearable, thanks to the illusion we provided. I looked at father. He didn't suspect my knowledge, my disgust, my growing acceptance of the darkness we served. The funeral home's legacy would continue, a bulwark against a worse fate, but the price, I knew, would forever stain my soul. Built on death and despair, will crumble, and I, the son burdened by his father's sin, will be the one to continue this horrid curse, even if it means becoming the very darkness I seek to vanquish. Because sometimes, the only way to break a curse is to confront the shadows head on and pay the ultimate price. Well, this story was sent anonymously, and I have rewritten some parts and used some words to make it more poetic, while some names were replaced and some personal informations were removed to protect the people's lives and their privacy. All situations are rewritten in a way to explain their situation, and I did my best to show the summary of what that person shared. There's no way to determine if the story is true or not, but based on my research, the details provided did exist in real life, and thus I dare say, this is a true story for us to ponder at night.